I'm your host, Shiv Faujdar, Head of Training and Development at Alcott Global. I'm excited to have Pauline Tay as our guest today. Pauline brings with her over 25 years of HR experience across diverse industries in industrial, consumer goods, and hospitality, and extensive regional and global experience. Pauline has lived and worked in the US and led regional teams across the Asia Pacific, Europe, and Americas with core expertise in change management and transformation, organizational design and development, strategic workforce planning, and transition and integration. Currently, she is VP HR Asia Pacific at Griffith Foods Limited, where she leads HR to serve the company's purpose of blending care and creativity to nourish the world. Pauline, thank you very much for joining us today. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you, Shub. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great. So, Pauline, let's just start with you first. Please share with us your career story and how have you navigated across different industries you've been a part of?
Okay, well, actually, I kind of stumbled into HR by accident. After leaving school, I was kind of like trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, right? And of course, at that point in time, more than 30 years ago, it was personnel management.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, me being quite an outgoing person, being a people person, I was like, okay, let's try it. And so, I stumbled into it. And since then, I've not looked back. I think I found my calling and I'm still here today.
Wow. And how about moving into different industries for your HR role?
Yeah, so I think for me, when I look back the last 30 years, I think what has really kind of been that critical success factors, I think it's, as I navigated through the different industry, it's really about having that curiosity for business. I would always spend, whenever I move, from one industry to a different industry, it's about spending the first 100 days just learning the business, getting myself immersed in the business. I've been in the hotel operations where I first spent the first 2 weeks there just trying to understand how a hotel actually run. I've also been out there in a crushing plant looking at how soybeans are being crushed, or been out to a Dettol factory looking at how Dettol is being produced, right? Even spending time on a vessel, right? Climbing up vessel that's 6-story high. So it's really a lot about learning the business, because I think in order for you to really add value, you've got to learn the business. So having the curiosity is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing this podcast with somebody else from HR, and they said the same thing, that one of the things you have to be careful about is not to reach a stage where you feel you know everything. So you're always mixing things up, whether it's industry or the kind of function you're supporting, to always be in the curiosity mode. So Pauline, when we were discussing earlier, you mentioned you've been a big believer in HR doing value-added business partnering instead of how we traditionally view HR as a back-end function. So how have you done this in your career? If you could give us some examples, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think for HR to add value in the business, we got to be in the business. It means us really, being out there, engaging the leaders, the people, having regular conversations, asking questions. I sit in business reviews, really just to understand how the business is doing, where we are heading. In my previous life, I've gone out even with the sales team to present to the customers, because that was anyway the nature of the business, right? So I have been in places where I was looking after HR, but I have also been an account director looking after a key account. Even ran a business in the interim until we hired a new MD for it. Have also gone out, with the sales team to go meet customers. I remember once, I had an account director coming to my room looking a little bit depressed, saying that, hey, I think we're going to lose this account after 17 years or something like that. And so I said, why don't I go see the customer? And I went. The customer was really surprised and delighted, and actually said to me that, hey, look, I've never really had a VPHR come and see me, and you are the first. So we had a really good conversation. We met, and subsequently, we kind of stay connected and continue to keep in touch. And eventually, they actually decided to renew the contract with us, because they were so surprised that HR person actually went to see them.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
And Pauline, traditionally HR doesn't get involved with these kind of things, working with the accounts, etc. What gave you the courage, so to speak, to say, you know what, let me go and handle this, or let me take care of the business as an interim MD?
Well, I think also, first of all, I was in the business for some time. And because of the time that I've invested into learning the business and being out there with the business, I really became very familiar with the business. And so, when we were going through, when we were seeing growth and we were also sort of restructuring, actually at a time I worked for a boss who was really nice and said to me, hey, why don't you even consider moving into sales? But I was like, I love HR too much, but I would actually, really love to go out to see customers as well. So I think I was lucky in the sense that I had worked for a really good boss who gave me that opportunity, plus couple that with my curiosity and just loving being, out in the front line as well. I think that, yeah, that was.
Fantastic. And now changing the gears to, about the role as an HR and, getting the right talent. Right now, we're facing a time where there's a big talent war and, people are struggling, companies are struggling to retain and hire talent. What are your biggest challenges in attracting and retaining talent, and how are you combating those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially now post-COVID, we're seeing this great vaccination, and
Yeah.
also because of the war for talent, we are also not, I mean, any exception as well. So we are losing people too. We get competitors coming in trying to hire people. So the difficulty with that was it's always whenever somebody comes, it's all because there's a higher salary and things like that. Of course, we would do what we can sometimes to counter offer the salary, but I think it's more than that. I think to
Yeah.
retain the talent, it's also about the employee value proposition. And how are we as a company adjusting, right, to the needs of a very different workforce. The complexion of the workforce have changed, and the millennials and all of that are they are motivated by different things. So in the workforce, you've got more of the traditionalists who are more motivated by more stable career and adequate pay and a meaningful work. But with the millennials, they want flexibility. They are more, they care more about mental well-being and things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so as we retain and even acquire new talent, we are constantly looking now at how we can sort of redesign our EVP, right? To make it more, we have to be more creative. We have to, really consider the different I guess, expectations that are coming from different parts of the workforce out there. So it's not only just a dollar and cents, but are
Yeah.
you offering meaningful work? Is this
Yes.
a place where they have psychological safety? Is this a place where they feel that, hey, the purpose of the company aligns with mine? So I think it's all about that, right? It's the whole full package. Yeah.
Yeah. And what have you discovered? How are you meeting these kind of things in Griffith Foods for your talent? And it's so interesting because it's not like it's only millennials. You still have people who are Gen X, baby boomers. There's Gen Z coming in already, and then a big chunk is the millennial. So have you found any secret sauce which you can share with people who are listening to this?
I think one of the thing also for us being such a purpose-driven company is also the fact that even within the company today, we have what we call a purpose journey. So
Mm-hmm.
we actually put our people through a purpose journey program where it is a 7-week online program, and it comes also with a peer-to-peer sort of mentoring platform. And in each of the cohorts that we run, actually they are facilitated even by our own people managers who are volunteered to be facilitators, for facilitating the purpose journey program. So this is really something that we offer to our employees, right? So that as you go through this journey, it's about you discovering your journey versus looking at your own purpose journey, looking at what's the purpose of the company, do they align? And hey, at the end of the day, if you felt that there is a great alignment there and you're so happy that you're going to stay, good. But at the end of this, if you feel that maybe my purpose doesn't quite align with the company's purpose, and you feel that you want to move on, and that's okay as well. Right? I think for us, it's really about offering that sort of opportunity out there for people to feel that connection back to what the company is doing.
Yeah. Oh, this sounds fantastic. It's really, I think, the sweet spot, especially for millennials and Gen Z, to have that alignment of purpose. And in similar vein, the business and the world have changed significantly in the last 2-3 years.
Yes.
So this is what you talked about, attracting, retaining talent. How about developing your talent to meet the new challenges within the industry, but overall in the workplace?
Yeah, so even as a company, we are also on this journey where we're looking towards our new, aspirations as well. And so we continue to invest in the development of our people. So we have recently sort of reviewed even our own online learning website to refresh it with new content, with more new learning tools for people to access. We are also introducing a new learning platform with refreshed content for employees to access. But at the same time, we've also launched what we call a personal growth plan refresh recently, where this is a personal growth plan that employee owns. It is a individually tailored development plan. But we've decided to call it a growth plan so that we want them to own it. We want them to see that as something that they have put together with the support of the company to continue to grow and learn with the company. So, and also we are looking at launching a new leadership academy in one of our region. And so, yes, we continue to develop to invest into the development.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And you talked about leadership here. So, Pauline, what are the most important skills that you as a HR business partner look for when making senior level hiring decisions or promotion decisions?
Yeah, I think, not only just the technical competence and all of that. I think in fact, I would say one of the other elements that I would always look out for, or rather two, would be empathy. I think, having empathetic, having, a leader who's empathetic, I think that's a great quality to have. And I think humility as well. It's also because that's also about the willingness to listen, the willingness to really value diverse views that might come in. So I think humility and empathy are the two things that I would be looking out for.
And I'm just curious here on how do you assess these things when you're going through the interview or assessment process at senior level hiring?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, it's really just having that conversations with them and, just sharing, our own personal experience, or asking them to show, to share about their own personal experience, right? And that's kind of, I think, where we get a sense of whether this is really someone that has got empathy, especially for us as a company, because one of our value is act like family. And, when we find ourselves in a situation, we would always sit there and ask ourselves like, okay, so what do we do? This is a family member, right? Therefore, having that empathy there, it's so important.
Yeah, and you've embodied that throughout your career, right? When I'm listening that when the account director was upset, you decided like a family member that, okay, it's time for me to see if I can help in any way. So you already embody that. Fantastic. Now, you also mentioned that we need to take HR to the next level. What does the next level look like to you, Pauline, as the VP HR with 25 years of experience?
Well, for me, I think, that means that HR needs to continue to be in the business, right? And the way that we can only free ourselves up to be in the business, because today there's so many competing priorities. So I think one thing obviously is leveraging on technology, because everyone is talking about AI and technology and things like that. So I think that's one thing we need to embrace so that we can automate as much of the processes as possible. Allowing our line managers then, more empowerment, right? To also sort of manage their people. And then at the same time, that frees us to really be in the business, be out there, engaging, providing the guidance and the coaching. And I think this is, to me, I think that's really the next level, right? HR just being out there, really working closely with the business and not getting bogged down by all the other things. Of course, there will always be the operational side of HR that we cannot run away from. But I think there are some things that we can, really slowly start to automate and have AI take over, and so that we can really add value by just being out there, spending more
Yeah,
time with the business. Yeah.
absolutely. Putting the human and human resources, so to speak.
Exactly. Exactly.
Good. So, look, we are almost at the end of the podcast, but I would love to get your biggest advice to people who are entering the workforce or who have less than 5 years of experience. What would you tell them so that they can make the most of their careers?
Well, I would say, two things as well. I think one is having that willingness to work hard, and two, having the humility to learn, right? I
Hmm.
think, when we're willing to work hard, when, just because the only way to learn is by being in action, right?
Hmm.
You've got to be in action. And the other way to learn is, and to go far, it's really to have the humility to learn. So I would say that would be the advice that I would give. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Pauline. This has been so fruitful. And thank you so much for sharing your examples as well. Your story of as an HR person going to the account is something which I think I'm going to tell in a lot of my posts and podcasts. And thank you very much for our audience as well. Please feel free to follow or connect with Pauline. We will be connecting her LinkedIn profile link on the description for this podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel where I will be bringing more talent leaders to talk to you about what we can do with the talent in the industry, especially in these times. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shub. Thank you for having me.